Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Business List, your source for stories inside the party, across the country, and around the world. We are LP Alliance, an intercaucus coalition rebuilding and revolutionizing the Libertarian Party. I'm Amanda Griffiths. I'm joined by Jake Porter and Rose Leatherman. I'm not joined by Kyle Davis. He's just here. How are you all, you guys?
Kyle is just everywhere at once.
Kyle is everywhere at once. He is the alpha and the omega. He is omnipresent and omnipotent. We should fear him.
Also, you should, because now I'm over your bylaws. I'm all up in your bylaws.
I'm all up in your bylaws too.
Yeah, but I'm chairing the bylaws.
You're temporarily chairing the bylaws.
That is too long. Until
somebody proposes a bylaw, somebody who may or may not be him, that makes him permanent bylaws chair.
For all time, like put in the bylaws that Kyle Davis is just bylaws chair, just always.
So he's like Michael Heist, Mishi's pocket.
There we go.
I am against this plan in all of the ways. Chairing committees is a lot of work, and I already do a lot of things, so I'd prefer to not to.
Requires you to know a lot of things too. Requires you to know things like various.
Last.
What?
You get to vote last on everything. You get to hear everybody and be like, And if you don't know what's going on, you just don't have to vote. And then it comes down to you, it's like abstain. And then it just is like, oh, motion fails. Yep. The whole time. It's great. That part's easy.
What's the hard part?
All of the paperwork and cat freaking hoarding and
cat hoarding. Hoard cats.
Is that required for bylaws? Like, is that a little known bylaw hidden
something
somewhere?
That Kyle likes to do in his spare time is hoarding cats. Better than shooting dogs, which is what our Homeland Security Secretary likes to do. That's a segue, my good people. And yes, so we just wanted to open with a lighthearted, tidbit about the decline of our nation.
Lighthearted dog murder.
And we wanted to share that Kristi Noem is not knowledgeable about various things. As many know, in the first place, she was recently asked on the Hill whether she knew what the definition of habeas corpus was. She responded that habeas corpus gave the president the right to detain someone without needing to provide cause, I believe, which is the opposite of what habeas corpus is. You have to have a reason. Now, the questioner who asked this question was indeed reading from a sheet of paper when she corrected Kristi Noem about the definition of habeas corpus. So nobody really knows what habeas corpus is. It's an evolving concept. It means everything and nothing. Jake, you are supposedly someone who cares about freedom and the law. What does this tell us about the state of our administration?
I'm pretty sure habeas corpus is something we took over from England after we left. And then we're like, yeah, we really liked how they detained people without trials. That was really great. No, it does show the complete decline. At least in the past, whenever we had people that would violate the Constitution, like in the Obama or George W. Bush administration, they at least knew what it said.
Yeah.
They would try to get around it, but they at least understood what it said. And I think probably, they would at least follow a Supreme Court ruling if it came down against them. And they did, whether it be Bush or Obama or Biden or anyone else, they could disagree with it, but they'd follow it. Trump just doesn't follow the Supreme Court, and he'll just go out and do whatever he wants. And then he's got people that don't know what they're talking about, like Kristi Noem.
As we've been informed by Trump's administration, right? Everyone knows the president's at the top of the hierarchy, and the judicial branch reports to the executive, apparently, and are there to follow the president's orders. That's what I learned in school from Schoolhouse Rock, right? There aren't three equal branches.
What is
There's
it?
God, King, Mongol, Trump, and everyone else.
We joke about this, but few enough people know about balance of powers, unfortunately, and separation of powers, that it can very easily be implanted into the public consciousness that is indeed true. And with the imperial presidency and an impotent Congress, that's very easy to convey. The court, we are learning, and we've always known that the court doesn't actually have enforcement power. The second you decide not to abide by a court ruling, it's essentially ineffective. That doesn't happen much, but it is happening currently, and we are seeing the fallout of it, which is essentially very, very few people are acting. Rose, what is your understanding of habeas corpus, and why is Kristi Noem the way that she is?
Well, see, okay, this is one of those situations where, okay, we have these laws that on paper sound great. In practice, are they ever actually followed? Okay, in theory, the state needs to have a reason for detaining someone and for imprisoning them. However, how long did it really take before they started violating the constitutional laws? Not very long. Okay, there's always going to be some. There's always going to be some. Yeah, I think they started for example, shortly after the Constitution was officially ratified, they started violating it to seize things from pirates. This is one of those situations where there's always going to be some emergency where the state is always going to be able to say, oh, well, things are different this time, okay? We need to be able to suspend the Constitution for everybody's safety just temporarily. Then they set the precedent that the state can suspend the Constitution. This is no different, okay? This especially following 9/11, when pretty much any semblance of the Fourth Amendment and the was officially eliminated. The state has been arresting and detaining people and violating their privacy, spying on them without a warrant for decades now. The CIA was snatching people out of their homes in the middle of the night and having them renditioned in foreign countries without charge, let alone trial. So this is really nothing new.
Well, there are a few new dimensions, and I think a lot of this has to do with the scope and the scale. So we're reporting tonight on a study that was conducted, or rather, a report, an investigation from CBS News that's subsequently been written up at the Cato at Liberty blog, which is that of the 240 Venezuelans to be imprisoned in El Salvador, the vast majority had no criminal record whatsoever, and quite a few of them were legal residents, legal immigrants to the United States. They came here legally. One of them came here under asylum. A few others were on work visas. So they were some were waiting for citizenship hearings. So they came here legally. They were taken without cause, without being provided cause. Their families weren't provided cause. The public wasn't provided cause. They were taken to a detention center in El Salvador that is known for human rights violations and torture. And these are people with no criminal records. There were 2 people who have United States criminal records for petty drug offenses.
Right. It's that terrorism exception again. The state decided, now we're going to designate drug cartels as terrorist organizations, and these people have been labeled as potentially affiliated with some kind of terrorism, and now they can be detained without trial and sent to foreign countries.
And most of them weren't even that. I mean, most of them did not have, the 2 of them had drug offenses on their record, and the rest of them either didn't have any U.S. offenses or didn't have any offenses at all. Many of them were legal immigrants. So this is mind-boggling. It's also, it's not really, unfortunately, but we're also paying for this, right? So this is taxpayer funded. The United States is paying El Salvador to keep these prisoners detained while claiming that they have no capacity to demand that those prisoners come back and be released. So this is something that Trump offhandedly claimed, and then actually we found a court opinion where this was referenced, that Trump and the Trump administration has argued to the courts that they cannot order the these prisoners back because they're in another country's jurisdiction now. So simultaneously, we're being told we can't bring these people back, that we've detained without cause, that we're not allowing to speak to anyone, the media, their families, nothing. And also, we are paying for it. We're funding this. So
it came out this week that the claim that El Salvador would have to okay the return was a lie. Trump actually told the president of El Salvador, tell them you can't do this. It would make us look bad. Like, what more do you need to just like acknowledge that everything is fucked here?
And furthermore, we're paying them. If we cut off that funding, they're going to send them back. We're paying them to house these people in prison. So if we cut off the funding, they're going to send them back. This is laughable.
I think what's disturbing is like now it's out in the open. Like, okay, yeah, when the CIA was kidnapping people in the middle of the night and sending them off to foreign countries, they were doing it secretly. Okay, you could find the information if you looked, but for the most part, the general public, they either didn't care or they didn't really pay attention. Now, yeah, they're not really hiding what they're doing, and Trump supporters are like, oh, but yeah, okay, yeah, this is happening, but it's a good thing because it's just, it's those scary brown people. We don't want them invading our country, so it's good that they're being sent to be imprisoned without charge indefinitely.
Rose does bring up a great point, though. During the George W. Bush administration, the CIA was opening torture, since they didn't think they could operate them here in the United States. They were opening up torture camps in Syria, for example. That was when we were temporarily friends with Assad again, before we decided to stab him in the back because we didn't like him. They were doing that for people that they suspected of being Al-Qaeda. Same way with Guantanamo Bay, people that we later on find out, some of which had nothing to do with Al-Qaeda. And the torture that happened there, it paved the way for what we're seeing today with Donald Trump. The Republican Party set the way back then, and now they're just following it through.
Right. I mean, I guess what I was getting at was as great as habeas corpus sounds and as great as the Constitution sounds, like it's never really had any teeth. Okay, it's a great idea.
Yeah,
it doesn't work
is effectively
because
a social contract.
Precisely.
The government has, and I agree with you, it's a social contract. By that extension, the government also does not have teeth. Sarabella points out in the comments, I think it's Sarabella, without a constitution, the government ceases to exist. If we ignore the Constitution, it is allowed to function as it does because we allow it to function as it does. So the government is also upheld by our consent. When we stop consenting, it gets a little messy, but we stop consenting. And this is when you have a constitutional crisis, when you have an administration and executive defying the courts and saying, all right, well, that doesn't matter anymore. When you have a Congress that's rendered impotent by both self-interest and actual doctrine, you have a public has a choice to make. And that choice is whether to acquiesce to learned helplessness or to actually stand up and do something. And the issue that libertarians have, and I don't think anyone would disagree with this, is that we are really independent. We like our independence. And so a lot of libertarians who would be otherwise gung-ho about taking action, it's very difficult to organize and work together because libertarians kind of cringe at the idea of collective anything, including collective organization. The problem is that if libertarians don't do something, libertarians don't lead some kind of charge here, then either no one will or someone else will, right? And we don't know who that someone else is going to be. We don't know what they're going to want. So it is imperative that we work with others outside of the Libertarian Party and others who are not indeed libertarians, that we work with them and that we coalition together, but that we lead at the helm of this. And that is the next challenge, is to come together and to actually begin doing things and reaching out and recruiting people who are in other minor parties, other people who are fed up with this, other people outside of politics, right?
We could end up in a real bad problem here. I said earlier, when the Constitution no longer provides the basic protections for the people, At some point, the people are going to quit respecting the laws that provide protections to the government officials. The left can be just as violent as people on the right. That's a myth that we think that they can't. The left could also put up their own Donald Trump after this. There could be a counter coup on the right against Donald Trump. Just because he's not competent doesn't mean the next person won't be. It is critical that libertarians stand up for the rights of all people. And we are the ones who can do it. We are the ones who are not hypocrites on this. We are the only ones who did not get us in this mess. We're the only ones that probably can get us out of this mess. It's the same philosophy that that allowed us to break away from England, and we can be the leaders in this movement too. Or we can choose to do nothing, and we can allow someone else who does not have our same view, and it will not be good. It will end in violence, and I think we can prevent that.
Well, I mean, I'm still definitely going to keep trying to wake up any liberty curious people I come across. I wish I was so hopeful that, like, oh, if we stop obeying the state, they cease to exist. I mean, okay, I wish that were true. I remember being a little kid in elementary school, because I've been an anarchist basically for as long as I can remember. I remember trying to like explain to the other kids, I'm like, if we all just refused to do our homework, the teacher couldn't really do anything. And they would all just look at me like I was insane, which, okay, fair enough. But I did have a point there. Okay, could they really punish everyone? Like, if we all just refused to obey their authority, what could they do? And yet everyone still seemed to want to go along with the teacher's rules and to do their homework. There were always those like kids who, I don't know, prided themselves on their ability to follow the rules better than anyone else. So yeah, and unfortunately that's kind of how it works, even when you're an adult too. So
well, and you're touching on the problem of collective action, right? Which is at the early stages, we are all participating in that via LP Alliance, right? So at the early stages, it's really, really hard to get involved in collective action because there are only a couple people and you're a new entrant. And if people don't actually do anything, if you don't have numbers, you don't have a movement, right? And you have to work on recruitment and you have to take that risk. And it is a risk and it requires courage to say, I want to be one of the first people there, and that's exactly the problem. Is it goes against kind of human reason to take that kind of risk unless you're doing it for some other higher purpose and some cause that really matters to you. And I think that's the challenge that we face again as libertarians. Because it's difficult for us to coordinate and it has never been more imperative. Collective action doesn't make you a collectivist, all right? Collective action is nothing without the force of the individual and individual uniqueness. That is all that collective action is, that is compounded. So this needs to be a moment where we get our act together and act when nobody else is. Sarabella has a question. Do we really respect the Constitution or only the government that will use force if we don't?
That's a good question. Do we respect them or do we fear them?
So I would argue, and like Amanda and I have argued about the Constitution multiple times here. Because I tend to go back and say, well, the Constitution says a lot. And Amanda's pointed out that like Constitution worship is dangerous. And she's totally right there. To me, the Constitution is a physical document. The Constitution as the United States' Constitution is not the point. The Constitution is an idea that in anything, it doesn't matter if it's your government, your business, your life, anything, there must be checks and balances on power. And if anything gets too powerful, you are protected by your God-given right to protect yourself. And I know that some people are turned off by saying God-given right. If you want to say natural right, I don't care. I'm saying God-given. Deal with it. You can't stop my speech. So do I respect the Constitution for being the founding governing document of the country? Not directly. What I very much value is people who have come together from every state and it took all 13 of the original founding states. It takes 2/3 of a majority of the states to come together on this and say, we are working together for this collective thing. Here's what's important. Here's how the power must be checked. Here's what we're going to do if you don't check your power. And so that's the only part of it that I respect. Now, I think that I speak for all of us when I say that the United States government is the most terrifying government ever. Like nuclear weapons, the most weapons of anything, the ability to glass all of us in seconds. It's terrifying. It is a terrifying thing. It could not only glass the United States could glass the entire world in minutes. They have the capability to literally end humanity. That is terrifying.
Yeah.
So, do I respect that? In the same way I respect the robber who's got a gun pointed at me. I don't respect it because it's correct. I don't respect it because it has any moral justification. I respect it because I want to live.
I think,
And as such, I think that the only way forward for any of us as libertarians is to show that government that the Second Amendment does protect us, that our rights are protected. And so when things like these deportations are happening, we need to be stepping up together to say, hey, you have deported 50 illegal immigrants from Venezuela alone. You've deported multiple United States citizens. You're putting them in prisons in other countries. You're doing it without due process. You're trying to take away habeas corpus. You're ignoring our constitutional rights, our natural rights, our God-given rights. You're ignoring our ability to live our lives happily. You're ignoring our property. You're ignoring everything that we possibly can consider part of the human condition here. And it's all so that you can be happier without certain brown people here. This is something that everyone should be champing at the bit to go fight over. This is unacceptable. This is what the beginning of actual violent revolution looks like. If we don't stand together and step up and say, we aren't taking this, our entire country falls. And a lot of the people who are going for this want that to happen. There's a lot of people who are accelerationists thinking about this. If you want the controlled movement toward less government and toward a libertarian ideology, we cannot afford for the government to nuke us, and we cannot afford for a king to take everything over. We must stand against them.
The Constitution is, you can think of it like a contract, right? It is an agreement that is made with the individuals in this country. Now, the issue is that we didn't contract directly into it, right? But they are a set of principles that are enumerated. They are a set of rights that are enumerated. And when those rights are violated against anyone, because this is a document that applies to all of us, when that document is disrespected, then those rights are violated on behalf of all of us, even if it didn't happen directly to you or me. Our rights were violated. That is a type of violence. And so, yeah, I think the answer to Sarah's question, I think we'll find that out, in the coming weeks, months, whatever. If people stand up for their rights and that those are rights that we share with others, then we respect the Constitution. If we don't take action, then we are respecting the government that will use force if we don't. We are respecting the learned helplessness that is so ingrained and so beneficial to people who are in power, just to reinforce.
I think Dana said it well here. We should never respect anything that they ignore.
Right. Like I can respect what the Constitution was supposed to do, like the work that went into it, the ideas behind it. Fortunately, though, okay, what happens though if you try to use your constitutional rights in real life? Like, okay, you get pulled over. The cop asks, "Hey, mind if I take a look in your car? For my safety, just so I know that you don't have any weapons." You say, "I do not consent to an unwarranted search." Okay, per the Constitution, he's supposed to respect your right to decline the search. What happens in real life? Odds are you'll be dragged out of the car, have the crap beaten out of you, and then have drugs planted on you, and you end up, then it's your word against the cops when you're in court, and you end up with a prison sentence. Okay, so yeah, I mean, we only respect, it's not that we respect the government, it's that we fear them. And another thing, I think Amanda touched on another important point. A violation of the contract against one person should be viewed as a violation of all of our rights, but the state has done an excellent job pitting people against each other and making us want the state to violate other people's rights. Like the two-party system has done an excellent job getting people to view one another as the enemy, as opposed to understanding who the real enemy is. Okay, you have families being torn apart because one of them voted for Team Red instead of Team Blue. You're like, oh, those people, I wish the government would violate their rights because they're the reason why my rights are being violated because they voted for the wrong team. So yeah, it should be treated that way. It should be viewed as a violation of all of our rights, but most people don't care, okay? They have been conditioned to believe that other people are the cause of their problems. So then in the case of immigrants, they have been conditioned to believe that immigrants are the reason why they're getting paid less, like why they can't pay their bills, why they're not getting paid enough, why the cost of living is so high.
I agree in part with Dana, the last quote that we had from her, and I also want to differentiate. There are things that we should respect that are being ignored by the government. These are things like people's right to live freely, the people's right to privacy, people's dignity, people's right not to be abducted in some weird Kafkaesque half reality and deported to another country, our right not to have our money stolen from us to fund that. I think we should respect that, and that is definitely not being respected right now. But no, I agree that if the Constitution and the powers delegated in the Constitution to authorities are used as a cudgel in order to permit them to disrespect our rights, then there's a problem. I like Joe. You lost all your rights in a boating accident.
You know, and I've had an argument with libertarians in the past. You know, I had a guy in Iowa one time get mad at me. He said, "Well, you know, if the state of Iowa bans gay marriage or drugs or whatever, that's libertarian because it's constitutional." And this was back before the Supreme Court decision on gay marriage. And no, that's not it may be constitutional, may very much be constitutional, but it's not libertarian.
Right.
Libertarians believe in all your freedoms all the time. The Constitution is certainly not a perfect document. We owned slaves during the beginning of the Constitution. Women had very basic, nearly no rights. And even after slavery ended, Black people in the South didn't have very many rights. They didn't. We didn't even get the ability to vote in the South until the 60s. So it's been very ineffective at protecting the rights of the people. It has done better than most countries have, but it's not perfect, and it's only works as well as the American people allow it to work.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the exercise of a right doesn't make you a libertarian, right? Not everyone who believes in the Second Amendment is a libertarian. They might fight for that right. That doesn't make them all libertarians. So yes, absolutely.
Right.
And
Freedom of association tells us that, yeah, I mean, even if the state says you can't marry someone, you should be able to form a contract with whoever you want without the state being involved. So, yeah.
Kyle,
I don't have anything. I'm fine. I'm
are you sure?
No.
Okay. Yeah, no, and I also agree that that this is, again, these are rights that are reinforced by the people. At bottom, they're not reinforced by the Constitution. The Constitution's just there. All right. The Constitution just provides guidelines for what we can expect. And if we stop receiving what we can expect, the Constitution is there to legitimate action, if not institutionally, epistemologically, in praxis, whatever. So as we go on, this is one thing that we need to be seeing more and more of, is coordination, and from libertarians, right? Because we don't want other people, that Jake said it very well, that don't have liberty's interest at heart, taking advantage of the situation and spearheading movements. That's our responsibility and it's our opportunity. And again, we have to work with people who are not libertarians, but we need to be the ones doing that work and doing that coordination. Meanwhile, there was a big, beautiful bill. It's not that big. I've seen bigger bills. I'm just saying I have seen bigger bills. I don't know how big
It's the biggest bill.
bills.
It's the most beautiful bill.
Yeah, I'm pretty
hands
sure
are-
Obamacare was way bigger, at least 2,000 pages. This is 1,000 pages.
Obamacare was gigantic so that you couldn't see the part where they
1100 as well.
outlawed doctor-owned hospitals. Yeah. Worker self-management, that's for the noobs. So yes, there's a lot in this beautiful bill. In the first place, a lot of people have been talking about the no taxes on tips, right? So I think as many people are beginning to find out, this applies to cash tips, and it's also not so much no taxes as it is you get a tax refund. So you have to wait 2 years for your cash tips not to be taxed. There are various tax cuts. But again, as we know, if you're cutting taxes without cutting spending, right, because the taxes fund the programs on which you're spending, then you're just getting yourself further and further into debt. So we see a lot of tax cuts in this bill. It looks really good on paper, very nice and populisty. But ultimately, there are no spending cuts. There are very few spending cuts to help with this. Kyle, you took a look at this bill. What is the biggest, most beautiful part of it?
This bill does cut taxes, but it cuts taxes in a very weird way. It cuts marginal tax rates. It adds in a bunch of things for education and for children's healthcare things. And if you want the government to provide help for those things, then you could make an argument that that's a good thing. But like the way the marginal tax rate is being changed here, right? My tax rate goes down by 3% over where it is currently, not where it's supposed to be next year, but where it is currently. When we looked at it, like Amanda's tax rate stays the same.
Because I'm really poor.
Amanda is a grad student. Grad students don't make money.
We don't.
Where would you like to see tax breaks? So these tax breaks are hitting people in the $250,000 plus per year range. Everywhere else is pretty much a coin toss on if it does anything. And like, don't get me wrong, I want to pay less taxes. I want everyone to be paying less taxes. But if I'm going to fight for this thing, it is a lot less painful for me to have a 3% higher tax rate than Amanda. And so it's just another one of these things where Trump claims, like, he's not even good at populism, right? He's poor at the idea of working for the people. He's like, well, most Americans probably make at least $250,000, right? He is the Bluth, what could a banana cost? $10 meme embodied as a president. And that's just the worst possible thing of all worlds. That's horrible. It does a whole bunch of odd things with schools where there are school tax breaks, and the school tax breaks are based on the people that live around you and how much you're donating. It's a big odd bill with a whole lot of pork in it.
I want to
and
note, by
it's-
the way, sorry, Jocelyn and Dana are absolutely correct that no one claims cash tips anyhow. So really, this is just an
Say.
increased tax on stupid people to claim cash tips.
I was gonna say, I'm like, isn't the whole point in cash tips is that, we're not encouraging tax evasion here. We're just saying we are fairly certain there are people out there who are totally breaking the law, and they should stop doing that because we do not encourage anything illegal here on this show. Let's just make that very clear.
I do.
But if you're playing Minecraft, definitely don't claim your cash tips.
This bill is estimated to bring $20 trillion more dollars in debt. 20 trillion. More than half of the debt we're already in. That is an unfathomable amount for any
I read
reasonable amount of time.
I read 3.8 trillion.
Per year.
Oh yeah, over 10. Oh, I thought it was over a 10-year period.
No.
Wow.
Well, and that's why the bond markets are blowing up now, because everyone realizes that Donald Trump is going to bankrupt the country just like he's bankrupted his casinos. That's what's going to happen. And then he's going to tell all the people who have the treasury bills that, oh, you're going to get 20 cents on the dollar, and the dollar will fall completely. America will lose its standing, and Donald Trump gets what he wants. We become a bankrupt nation. Yeah. Well, we've already had.
Yeah, we already lost our credit rate, or we had our credit rating
Moody's
down.
credit rating. Yeah,
we were
downgraded for
downgraded.
the first time.
Yeah, debt is now 124% of our GDP.
We can be just like Greece. And you know what's great about Donald Trump? He is the austerity president, though, isn't he? He's telling people you will live with less while he's increasing spending. It's amazing. The government's not living with less, but Donald Trump says you can only have 2 dolls. You only need 5 pencils. Don't break them. But the federal government
we hate
can have
communism.
and
We
we
all
can have
know
a
that-
birthday
we all
parade
know
for Donald
Muslim.
Trump.
We all know his kids had as many dolls as they could possibly want. So of course it's just the peasants who have to make do with maybe 2 or 3 dolls.
Trump got confused and thought your normal like $20 Barbie was instead the same as his like $20,000 robot that he gave to Barron.
Mm-hmm.
Kids can make do with 2 full-time robot friends. You know,
That was like
Yeah,
a cross
doesn't
between Donald Trump and
everybody
Bernie
have a
Sanders. That
robot?
was like in
Well,
both.
they're the same guy, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, I've never seen them in the same room. It's Bernie Sanders in a fat suit or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Bernie Sanders just puts a spray tan on, and then that's how you play both sides. I mean, that would be the greatest troll ever.
That's a great basis for like a political comedy or something.
I think Archie brings another good point in the Trump insanity. Trump has accepted on behalf of the Pentagon, guys. It's not the Trump himself, I promise. A $300 million jet from Qatar, a state that we claim is a terrorist state. This
They also give a
plane-
ton of money to our universities, which is great. But go on.
They are intending to replace the aging Air Force One with this new plane from Qatar, which is a lie, by the way. Let me explain to you how planes work as an aerospace engineer for a moment. There are no planes in the sky that are commercial and old. Yes, that tail number is 50 years old. Yes, the part of the airframe might be 50 years old. It is a ship of Theseus, though. They have replaced every bolt, every rivet, every panel on that aircraft 10 times. They get constant maintenance.
You only
It
need
isn't
2
a thing.
planes. Only need 2
No,
planes.
Donald Trump needs a 1964 Piper Cherokee to fly around like the common general aviation people have to have, and that's what he should get.
I think he should have to fly himself around.
I think you should have to take the bus. Okay, that's
Feel
what
like
a truly
steerage.
populist president who cares about the people would do.
Jimmy
Is-
Carter would take the bus.
Probably would actually.
He would.
I know.
Jimmy-
I'm agreeing with you.
Jimmy
no,
Carter sucked in a lot of ways, but that wasn't one of them.
I don't think you need more than 2 planes. I think you can have 2 planes and a much smaller house than the White House. Although the White House is very small because
you
it was
can
made
have-
when people were shorter.
You can be down to 2 houses, or how about maybe 3?
like
Now,
Jeremy,
you
that's
can be
not
down
much.
to 2 vacation homes. How about?
Yeah, that's all you need. That's all you need. Maybe like one hotel. I don't understand why we're spending all of this. Yes, you should travel in a unicycle. I did like Short Bus 1. That was fantastic. Thank you very much.
I just imagine that every time Trump would walk on a Short Bus 1, he would just be yeah, 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 yeah. You're like Top Gun theming the entire time as he gets on. It's like, yeah, man, Short Bus 1, the greatest bus in the world.
If it makes him happy. I say more power to him. What else is big and beautiful about this bill? Here's one thing that Kyle and I were arguing over because I'm a communist. And that's a joke, by the way, Joe. So just hold your horses.
He's a trot.
Definitely,
100%.
definitely a joke.
It is absolutely
Amanda,
a
what do
joke.
you think? What do you think of the attractiveness of Trotsky when he was young before the statist wall?
What do you think about the attractiveness of Stalin when he was young before the status wall? I've heard you talk.
Okay,
He's
okay.
hot.
The hot
that hair.
Stalin, the hot Stalin photo is fake. That is heavily edited. I have seen the
You
unedited
serious?
version, and I do not trust anyone who uses the hot Stalin photo as a profile
Thank you,
pic,
Rose.
which is way too common, by the way.
Thank you. I
Just
said he
disappointed.
looked like a Givenchy model, and I stand by that.
Well,
it-
I like faked, photoshopped Stalin.
you like fake hot Stalin. Okay, that's great. By the
Yeah.
way, there is a such thing as a status
as
wall.
opposed to Amanda, who likes actual Trotsky.
There is a status wall before people become hardcore status. They can be very, very attractive. The status wall, however, remains undefeated. And once they hit the status wall, become remarkably unattractive. And you can check this through like all iterations of time and history. One thing that Kyle and I were arguing about had to do with the child care tax credit. So it has been used, basically it's been changed to encourage employers to provide more in childcare, right? So it goes into effect at a higher level, essentially, but it is a greater amount. And so Kyle considered this socialism. I think this is a market incentive. Well, not a market incentive, but it is incentivizing employers while still giving them the choice to provide more childcare. So maybe I'm wrong, but I didn't see an issue with it.
In my view, anytime the government chooses winners and losers, there is something to talk about from the socialist tendency there. In this, and they are choosing winners and losers. They're choosing people that are parents, basically. They're incentivizing being a parent. And on one hand, yes, I want the species to continue, so we need parents, and so I'm not against that part.
This is
However, yeah, so you're giving employers extra money to give their employees extra benefits to make it more likely that they're going to come in. So if you are willing, like you can make your employment benefits cheaper. It like Angela said, it's a subsidy. That's the word I was trying to get to you. And so if you're subsidizing parents, you have become a better place to work. This is how the government got into healthcare in the first place, right? Like we can't raise how much we're paying people, so we'll give you some other benefit that costs as much. And so the government is choosing incentives here, and I don't like that. Now, don't get me wrong, I want taxes gone, right? So like the idea that it's lowering taxes for somebody, I have a hard time saying no to that. The fact that they're picking and choosing who to lower the taxes on based on who they like effectively, that bothers me. So like, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that everything about it's evil. I'm not saying everything about it's good. I think it is a very mixed bag, and you know, I'm not eating the M&Ms out of a bag of dog shit.
I mean, well, I've seen you do that. But there's the
was
child
cheese.
tax credit, which is that's what I
Cheese on a
told
bag
you
of
it
dog
was.
shit.
There's the child tax credit, which is much more clearly, you know, picking winners and losers and trying to encourage nativist policy. That I completely agree with. I think, you know, I personally am not going to, I'm much more likely to be an idiot and have a child because someone's directly giving me money just because I had a child than I am to like get a small portion of, you know, a child care credit from my, or rather to have a child because I'm going to get a small portion of a child care credit from my employer, which subsidizes it.
Yeah, and how about not making the country a hellhole so people want to have children? You know, maybe that's something they should focus a little bit more time on than these tax schemes. You know, maybe not destroy the economy so people can afford to have children.
Right. Stop
You know, instead of-
devaluing the dollar.
Yeah, and instead they're coming up with all these tax schemes that aren't really going to. Nobody's thinking about that tax incentive before they're having kids. Like, oh yes, we could. You're looking over their tax like, oh, next year we really need to have a kid to get this extra $5,000 from Uncle Sam. No one's thinking like that.
Right. Like, okay, people are not having children because they can't afford to, because now most households have to be dual income at the very least. A lot of people are living with multiple roommates indefinitely. But yeah, I mean, how many people can actually afford to take the time off of work to raise a child and pay the medical bills associated with having a child, and then okay, either taking time off work for years to raise the child until they're old enough to go to school, or being able to spend money on childcare so that they can go back to work. Like that ends up canceling out at least one person's salary for most working families. So yeah, you want to incentivize people to have children. Stop destroying the value of the currency. But of course, they're not going to actually do that. So they want to continue their out of control spending, their inflated salaries, their luxurious lifestyles, but they're also kind of starting to panic about the birth rates because they're like, hey, we're not going to be able to continue this indefinitely because there isn't going to be a next generation to pay into the system and to use as tax cattle.
No, now they are also moving people out of the country, and they don't want people to come here, so they're hurting us with that. Now, fortunately, though, for them, your children can soon work in the mines and in the factories. That's what Donald Trump wants in the economy. Won't that be
Children
great?
crave the mines.
Yeah, they want to work in those mines. It'll just be like the old days when we had
Natural
tariffs and things
habitat.
were great.
Their lungs are healthy and ready to be poisoned. Michael B, by the way, I think makes a pretty good point that I would modify slightly. Best taxes are user fees and taxes on bad things like traffic or pollution. I mean, again, that's still like a morality tax, incentive tax, but much better than taxes on labor or consumption. The problem with taxes on traffic is that a lot of commuters are lower in. It's like a tax on labor, because a lot of commuters are lower income. So what you're doing is you are disproportionately punishing the people who have to drive to work, have to commute to work. And, you're also punishing a lot of participants in the gig economy. But in general, something like a sales tax, and I don't think a consumption-related tax, a higher consumption tax, would be a terrible thing insofar as it tends to be pretty graduated. It tends to be progressive without actually being forcibly progressive. But I agree in the most part that taxes on labor, I can't get behind. We want LP News, says Devin. All right, we have LP News.
Our producer has been yelling at us in the background that we need to get to LP News for a while. He's even at this point making like public comments at us. So sorry if you want to hear more of us yelling about the federal government. Not tonight. Now
Yes,
it's time
boss.
for LP News.
This is what really matters. This is what everyone came here for.
I wanted to say, so this comes from an anonymous source, but a source that we find credible on this account. We now know what Angela McArdle's side of the story is with regard to freedom calls. So as many of you know, the allegation is that Freedom Calls was a shell company basically set up to fund Angela McArdle's household. What Angela McArdle is saying now is that Freedom Calls was a real organization. It was a Philippine call center with a few employees that Angela proposed or just, took over in order to have an LP asset, thought that this would be an LP asset. Again, I want to point out that this is the same kind of person who's supporting bringing all the jobs back to America, claiming to have outsourced political calls to the Philippines.
So an alleged
there's an extra layer there, right? Because go ahead, Rose. I'm sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
No, you're good.
No, really, go ahead.
Oh no, now I'm forgetting what I'm saying. There's an additional layer of insanity here, because she's telling us that this could be an LP asset. Political parties aren't allowed to own companies. You cannot take a private company and make it part of the LP. Period.
We didn't even know who owned this private company.
We do know who owned the private company. It's a single person LLC owned by one Austin Padgett, who may or may not be the father of Arthur McArdle.
I just find it
McArdle.
funny that
Leave the children out of this.
I just find it funny that an alleged call center decided to hire another overseas alleged call center, allegedly, to do the calls for them.
It
So
doesn't cost that
after-
much to set this up.
I mean, Freedom Calls is supposed to be its own call center, and now we're hearing that the reason they didn't make any calls is because they outsourced those calls. Okay, there should be record then of the purchase of this call center, and there should be call logs.
And this is our very important graphic.
This is
Coming
why
directly from our producer Devin.
This is why Devin wanted us to get to the LP news. In case you didn't know, it's because Devin made this graphic. He was very proud of it. I think it's great. Kyle didn't like it, but I thought it was very funny. And so now we
If you
get to
have
see
a
it.
Philippine call center, we can take you live to Freedom Calls call center.
Yeah, we're gonna put out a call now. If you work for a Filipino call center that was ever contracted by a company called Freedom Calls, you have a standing invite to come on this show.
Please, you'll replace Kyle.
So why did it take? And I don't know, where Angela said this guy. I know you got a course on that, but why would it take her so long to say this if this was the truth? Why wouldn't you just say that right up front when Treasurer Redpath asked, the day after my report came out or that day?
This is based on a source that we can't reveal, who is very close to things, who found this out on the side. They are not someone who could post about this publicly. They shouldn't have found out in the first place. This is something that reportedly McCardle has told people on the LNC.
But what Jake is saying is, why didn't she tell people that earlier when this first
So
came
why
out?
don't you just come out and say,
Imagine
Give
for
her
a moment.
break, okay? She's busy
Turning
with
with a
her
straight
new Trump
face.
job.
Well, she's got a
and
couple of
saying-
board games to design too. She's a busy person. She's got
Yeah.
speeches. She's got all kinds of tweeting to do. She's got to lecture people about Christian values such as "Thou shalt not steal." That's an important one.
And she has to, she has a campaign.
Kiss
to
Trump's
run.
butt. I mean, she's got a lot of stuff to do.
Yeah, she's gonna take the party back over again next year too. So yeah, she's got a lot going on in addition to her job with Trump's cabinet.
Which was also outsourced to the Philippines.
Evidently,
It's she's been a grifter for 7 years. We at LPA don't even like bringing her up, but when things do come up about her that are an important thing, we want to make sure the news is out there for people. So that's enough time, in my opinion, on her.
And now we know the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey used to say.
I want to instead take a moment to spotlight everyone's favorite leprechaun, Michael Heiss.
I thought you were going to do
He's-
a panel round where we had to name our favorite leprechaun, and I was just going to be lost.
I was gonna say I really love the Lucky Charms leprechaun. So
I
mean,
like the
So-
leprechaun from the horror movie.
I take time to honor him every day.
We now have a more public source from Citi and more data that's come out that can be talked about that isn't hidden by an NDA. In that data, we can see that there were never whales that came in like Michael Heiss promised. In case you haven't listened to Michael Heiss's promise for how he was going to bring in money to this party were crypto whales. He talked about it repeatedly. Bitcoin whales are the future of the party. He didn't
It
have
took a very long time. They became crypto snails because they're moving so slowly.
it. There is no giant boost from anybody. There are some bigger donations. That's true. They're from people who've always donated bigger. We didn't have a whole bunch of new people come in. We didn't have some giant spike from crypto people dropping money. And we took crypto publicly on the site. They didn't have to tell us who they were, and they still didn't do it. What did he do? Can you imagine your job is to bring in money for a party and they pay you more than you bring in?
Well, I'm not even clear
Right,
what his job was because
It was
he
to
also
bring donors in.
then he says it's for the Project Decentralized Revolution, which we also really don't know what that is.
We know for a fact that if left to his own devices, Michael Heiss would spend 100% of his time consuming the products of Ovens O'Brien and not talking to any human beings. That's seemingly what he did for the party. He dropped shrooms and didn't successfully bring in whales.
It's kind of like Bernie Madoff, I think, just kind of like continually promising that the money was going to come, and then it just doesn't happen.
Bernie Madoff was inspiring, though, and he was also, competent enough to, create a bigger scheme than this.
Right.
They weren't. They're not that talented.
It worked for a while. Okay, the people who bought in initially did think he was a genius. So yeah, we didn't even have that here. Yeah, can't remember what I was going to say, but
he did say, "By their fruits you shall know them," and we do know. We know embezzlement. We know membership down about half or over half. Candidates, the fewest candidates since 1994 or something. Lowest fundraising in 30 some years. So the fruits we understand it.
Hey,
Rotten, wormy
he almost
paying
got a
membership
big donor,
is
right?
the lowest it's been since like 1987. That sounds perfect, right?
How do you
But I
like
am
that
told their engagement on social media, well, that's through the roof. That's what we got to focus on. The only thing we've got to focus on is engagement on Twitter.
Yeah, you can get reactions out of people on social media. So that means you're getting attention. That means you're growing the movement, right?
I've got an idea. We need to think bigger. The BTK killer. Why don't we nominate him for the presidential nomination? This will definitely get more publicity than Gary Johnson. 50 state ballot access for the BTK killer. Dennis Rader, why not? Think of the publicity, the relevance we will have. And then we can educate the people on our positions. He might even get that 5% that we need.
You know what I think?
Rails tonight.
We'll
you
have
know a
two
guy-
sociopaths running already. Why not have a third?
But you know a guy who could really lead a movement, and this is where I think
Arnold Palmer.
we should go. Arnold Palmer, and that could be the running mate. I think we should nominate Vladimir Lenin because he got the job. He got the job done when nobody else could, and that's why I think. I mean, we would be winning. We would be extremely relevant if we nominated and ran Vladimir Lenin as our presidential candidate.
Like there's
Sounds
already we already have like we know how to implement this because the Mises Caucus already had that structure. They already had democratic centralism. They just didn't realize it because most of them, let's face it, were politically illiterate. That's why it was always hilarious how they would call people commies as a pejorative.
Communism is just communism. It's compatible, and I can't wait to get this started. Quite frankly, why do we put that on the screen? Why did we do
What are you
that?
talking about?
I mean, everything, it's all there. Like the constant need to root out and purge saboteurs and haters, aka revolutionaries.
Yeah, the expansionism. So that's more Stalin, but I mean, it's anything, right? It's anything and everything.
Let me call up my friend Kash Patel and tell him about these feds that we have in the Libertarian Party. That way he can root out the feds.
On the feds.
We're going to turn the feds into the feds.
There we go.
All right. And we also have folks in the chat who've been asking us to talk about this weekend. And that's how we should always be ending a show, right? Talking about LNC nonsense.
I mean, the past weekend. Is that only like this past weekend? Oh, gosh. Okay.
Yeah, it's only been 4 days.
My gosh. Okay.
So, on Saturday and Sunday, we saw the debut of some new people on the LNC, including Hawaii Chair Austin Martin, who we colloquially and lovingly refer to as the Crying Hawaiian sometimes. And we saw several things introduced by people, including lots of discussion. We watched Adrian Malagon get up as Andrew Chatterton was talking, walk into the gallery and apologize for ever having helped Chatterton get elected to the Michigan 8, which is the single most hilarious thing ever. Imagine, because a lot of people look at Adrian and they have major problems with Adrian. That's not the point of my segment at this point. Adrian Malagon went and apologized to the Michigan 8 because of how shitty of a chair and representative Andrew Chatterton is. That's phenomenal. That's hilarious. It was the most comical thing that happened this weekend. Overall, the meeting had quite a bit of dumpster fire moments. There were some good debates had and dialogues had, but they didn't get through the entire agenda because they spent the first 2 hours of the get together discussing the agenda, while the person who was there to give a talk on the update for the LNC and the report on the LNC waited for them to adopt the agenda so they could speak.
Mhm. We have good news, though. I mean, new bylaws committee was appointed, and there are some important people on it.
No one's important on it.
I mean,
You guys are selling yourselves short.
I'm selling it short. Amanda's offended.
I'm
You
what?
can see it.
I
Offended.
know. I was going to be well. I mean, there's one important person. I don't know if there's multiple important people.
From Amanda's perspective, this weekend was a huge win for the communists everywhere. by her collectivist power, she will rule with an iron fist and take bylaws over.
You're radicalizing me in the weirdest way, Kyle. No, there's at least one very important person appointed to the bylaws committee. No, it's a good committee, and it's going to be very exciting to work on bylaws and actually creating some protections that make sure that corruption can be quickly identified and mitigated, and that really take our party to being a force for real victory, politically and in all areas. So yeah, no, I'm stoked about that.
It for those who are not reading between the lines, Amanda and I have both been put on the National Bylaws Committee, and because Adrian Malagon apparently personally hates me more than anyone else, he pushed for me to be the interim chair, and the rest of the people on the LNC also hate me, so they accepted that nomination. So I at least have to bring a meeting to order and beg someone else to do the job.
If you can survive these next few months, yeah. Otherwise, we're gonna have to find a new panelist for this show.
My intention is to survive about 36 seconds of, okay, everyone's here, bang, we're in order. First order of business, agenda's adopted. Second order of business, election of new chair. And that will be my entire rule as chair with my iron fist. My iron fist is very soft and flaccid.
And on that soft and flaccid note, we will end this evening. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Jake. Thank you, Rose. Kyle, go away. Until next time, we are the Business List.